Okay, sisters, we're back with Contrapoints' No Such Thing as Autogynephilia video. And let's just get right to it.
Largely because, one, it's often presented as the only supposedly scientific alternative to mushy platitudes about women born in men's bodies, and two, many trans women have reacted to Bailey and Blanchard with extreme vitriol and personal attacks, resulting in the widespread perception that a bunch of triggered PC cucks are throwing a narcissistic male entitlement temper tantrum.
And that's exactly what it is. As I've stated in my part one, hold on. This camera just doesn't want to sit still. Okay, let me just back it up a bit. Okay, it's a little crooked. Yeah, basically, the fact of the matter is that narcissistic personality disorder is a very common comorbid psychological disorder in the transgender population. That link was in my first video. I think it was the first link. So yeah, and this whole how to pathologize women's anger. If cis, hysteria, if trans, narcissistic rage. Well, first of all, you're not a woman, okay? There's no such thing as cis women. Women are biological females. The whole word cis is a slap in the face to women. And you're not a woman, okay? There's no such thing as women who identify with the oppression of femininity. And that's basically what cis implies, is that somehow women just love to be socialized into femininity. And yeah, we don't. The reason why Nick likes femininity is because it's an erotic pleasure for him. It's not an erotic pleasure for women. Women do not get turned on by putting on their dress and their high heels. They simply don't. And this whole idea that there's autogynephilic women is stupid. And yeah, Moser is the idiot who tried to say women are autogynephiles when they're really not. And I'll explain that later when Nick brings it up.
Because Bailey and Blanchard accurately called them out as paraphilic fetishists. In her 2015 book Galileo's Middle Finger, bioethicist Alice Dreger championed Bailey as the undeserving victim of a hysterical SJW lynch mob.
And he was. And he was. Again, that link of the recollection of all the autogynephiles that went after Bailey after he came out with his book, that link is also in the first video. Alice Dreger correctly reported on what these three major autogynephiles did to Michael Bailey after they simply saw the cover of his book. And the narcissistic rage response is very real, and I guess we're seeing it right now in Nick's video.
But she gets so caught up in exonerating Bailey of the personal accusations against him and in telling a bigger story about academic freedom and how scientists are being silenced by PC cucks.
No, she actually describes, she has personal knowledge of the trans activists because she knows them. And she knew these autogynephiles that went after Bailey. She had personal communications with them through the whole thing. I mean, these autogynephiles posted pictures of Bailey's kids with their eyes blacked out. This is what these fucking narcissistic fucking autogynephiles did to one scientist simply because they don't like his typology. They don't like his book.
That she doesn't bother to check how good Bailey's science really is.
It wasn't about checking about, it wasn't about Bailey's science or Blanchard's science. It was about the fact that she had personal knowledge of the trans activists that went after Bailey during the time that Bailey was still writing his book and throughout the process of writing the book and after the book came out. So, no.
And ends up affirming the autogynephilia theory herself.
Yeah. Alice Dreger gives credit to the scientists who spent decades studying you dudes. Yeah, she does, because guess what? She is a scientist herself. So, yeah, she's not going to take your word. You're just some dude on the internet. She's going to actually talk to the research scientists that matter here, not you.
Now, I'm certainly not going to deny that trans people on the internet can sometimes behave like a bit of an angry mob.
Oh, really? I'm going to put a new link in the low bar about what these trans activists have said directly to women. And Nick is guilty of this too. Nick, you're a misogynist. It's just plain and simple. Because women won't buy your bullshit that you think you're a woman. You hate women. And this is the male entitlement that is transgenderism. This is the fucking erasure of women from men who simply think womanhood is a collection of psychology, when womanhood is a biological reality. It's not something that lives in your fucking head. It's a reality, material reality.
In fact, I may be on the receiving end of one of those myself in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, sorry. If you classify my rebuttal of your video as hateful, then you're an idiot, okay? I have taken great care, links, everything, to support what I'm saying.
Depending on how this video is received. But there's not exactly a shortage of sleazy passive aggression from the Blanchard and Bailey camp either. Blanchard is known to seek out and comment on pornography made by his detractors.
So what? It has nothing to do. Who cares if he comments on pornography made by his detractors? They went after his fucking children. I mean, you're not mentioning this. They went after this scientist's children. These autogynephiles did. And reading out of Galileo's middle finger doesn't do anything to disprove Blanchard's theory.
And Dreger is an advocate for the narcissistic rage theory of trans backlash against Bailey.
And the reason why she's a proponent of it is because the research has found that narcissistic personality disorder is common in you autogynephiles. I already put that link in the fucking description box of the first video.
Remember, according to autogynephilia theory, many trans women are erotically fixated on themselves, from which a dishonest person could make a conceptual leap to saying that they're narcissists, and hence...
No. In a separate study, without touching on autogynephilia, they found narcissistic personality disorder was one of the main personality disorders that these transgender males were suffering from.
Any trans woman who raises her voice in this conversation is accused of exhibiting narcissistic rage.
No, that's not true. You're raising your voice, but you weren't part of the 3 trans activists that went after Michael Bailey's fucking children, you idiot. They tried to ruin his fucking family life. Shit. Instead, you'll just sit on the internet and call women a bunch of fucking misogynist names.
From her wounded male ego. Furthermore, like so many other professors in recent academic freedom controversies,
Jordan Peterson is an idiot. I don't even know why he's in this fucking video. We're not talking about Peterson. You meant to spend this 45 minutes debunking Blanchard, and you haven't done that. You've basically pointed to straw men like fucking Bailey and fucking Peterson, and not actually gone into why Blanchard's theory is so fucking radically wrong.
Blanchard and Bailey being ruthlessly silenced by PC cucks has not really interfered with their academic careers.
Oh, but they certainly tried. They certainly tried. So do you think posting pictures of Bailey's children online with their eyes blacked out is a nice response to these scientists? I don't think so. Like I said, people, it's so important that you read Dreger's account of the autogynephiles who attacked Bailey.
Nor their continued authority to misrepresent people with less power than them.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you don't have less power, okay? You trans activists have done mighty well for yourself in the last 10 years. You've managed to erode women's privacy and safety rights. You managed to erode Title IX. You've managed to get gender identity laws passed in almost every single state, in every single school district, all across the Western world, whereby women and girls do not have any athletic fairness anymore. The Olympics now allows fucking men who have higher testosterone levels than females to compete against females. And that you think that the trans activists don't have any power. Fuck you.
This is, of course, assuming that autogynephilia really is a misrepresentation of trans women. And that's really the crux of this whole drama.
Yeah, finally. You're going to finally fucking try to argue against Blanchard instead of emotionally setting up this fucking thing you're doing?
So let's just leave the drama behind and dive right into that question.
Yeah,
Pursuing
please
the pure
do. I've spent 30 minutes watching this stupid fucking video. Come on.
truth, as we always do on this channel, relying only on the facts, the figures, the scientific studies. Just kidding.
Sure
If you really want to read a scientific argument against autogynephilia, read Julia Serrano's article, The Case Against Autogynephilia.
Yeah, one article against decades of research. And I would like to point everybody out, I linked this in my last video, Anne Lawrence, okay, who is also a scientist. Anne Lawrence is an admitted autogynephile who writes papers supporting Blanchard and against fucking Julia Serrano and fucking idiotic Moser.
Yeah, which pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Because I know that you
One paper against decades of fucking scientific research. Ooh, that's a great argument, Nick.
didn't click on this video because you wanted to hear about science. You came here because you wanted filth. And I'll give you filth, Bailey. I know that's what you want. And I'm going to give you what you want.
How is this about Blanchard's theory and his typology?
I want to give it all up for you. 5. The false dichotomy. Filth is coming, don't worry, but before we get there, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Advocates of Blanchard's theory pretty much unanimously introduce it as if it were the only possible alternative to what's called the feminine essence theory.
Well, it is the only other theory, and it's the theory that has been proven correct time and time again.
The feminine essence theory says that trans women are female souls in male bodies, that we are women from birth to death, and that transition is merely an effort to make our accidental exterior match our essential interior.
Yeah, and it's stupid.
People like Dreger will tell you that trans activists dogmatically adhere to this theory, and that anyone who challenges it will be pursued by a ruthless witch hunt. And of course, the only way to challenge it, we're told, is to defer to Blanchard's typology of homosexual and autogynephilic transsexual.
Well, you have a choice. You can try to argue, but you haven't made an argument yet.
Now, I object to this framing of the discussion because I don't believe in Blanchard's typology or the feminine essence theory. There is no feminine singularity that made me a woman from birth.
You're not a woman at all. Again, go back to my original prequel video, okay, to doing this. The crux of the argument is, do you believe in material reality or do you believe what's in his psychology? Seriously, you can't have a conversation with this dude because this dude, right, does not agree on material basic facts like you're a male and I'm a female. You are not a woman, you are a man. The dictionary has a definition of these terms, okay? Adult human male is a man, that's what you are, and adult human female is a woman, that's what I am. And it's based on material, testable facts, okay? You can't test your stupid fucking theory.
I wasn't born a woman.
No.
I was born a fucking baby.
No, you were born a male, okay? I love how he just did that. I would have played again and laughed because it was hilarious.
Typology or the feminine essence theory. There is no feminine singularity that made me a woman from birth. I wasn't born a woman. I was born a fucking baby.
He was born a male baby. Oh, that was cute.
Just like everyone else.
No, I was born a female baby. Okay? There's a difference.
There's no such thing as a feminine essence or a masculine essence. There's only biology, habitual behavior, and the way society responds to you, all of which can be changed quite a lot, and all of which are currently changing for me. Now, there is an emotional appeal to the feminine essence theory. I think most people have gender essentialist intuitions, and I admit I do feel on some level that I'm supposed to be a woman by nature, and in a sense that may be true. I don't think I chose to be trans, and it seems likely that there's something inherent in my biology or
It's in your psychology.
psychology
Yes.
that led me to transition.
Right. There's something you are, as you admitted later, a behavioral autogynephile, which means you have this erotic notion of this concept in your head of womanhood. It's a fetish, okay?
But that's not quite the same thing as essential womanhood, which intellectually I don't think makes sense.
Yeah, womanhood is biological reality.
I think it's heartwarming gibberish. But there is also, I think, a legitimate role in the discourse for heartwarming gibberish. Sometimes you have to explain what it means to be trans to a person who believes that dogs go to heaven.
Oh yeah, well, I don't believe dogs go to heaven. I believe in material reality, biological fact.
And in most circumstances, saying I'm a female soul in a male body gets the point across.
No, it doesn't actually. It actually makes you sound really nuts.
Not all language is philosophical. It's a lot easier to explain what being trans is in essentialist terms. To explain it without gender essentialism, it requires a whole complicated philosophical discussion.
Oh, I can't wait for this philosophical discussion. I really can't wait for this. So let's continue. You still haven't debunked Blanchard.
That most people simply aren't up to having. But the useful platitudes become a problem when more analytically minded people start putting these things under the microscope, and then they end up concluding that trans people are just fetishists who are telling lies about themselves.
No, that's Nick placing a value judgment. Blanchard came up with 2 types, and so far nobody has debunked them, not even you, Nick.
So you're probably wondering, if I'm not a fetishist and not essentially a woman, then why am I transitioning? Well, I keep saying this, but dysphoria really was the primary reason. And shortly before I transitioned, I made a whole video about that, if you're curious. You have to keep in mind that transitioning is not just for the bedroom. When you decide you're going to live as a woman, you have to do that at the grocery store and on airplanes and
How do you live as a woman? See, here's the fundamental issue. There's no such thing as living as a woman. You are either biologically female or you are not. There's no living as a woman, okay? So, this, he tries to say that my transition wasn't, I had no fetishistic impulses. I just had gender dysphoria. And what Blanchard said was the primary motivation for these autogynephiles like Nick to seek a medical transition, which is what he saw in his own practice, is the erotic component. And ultimately, though, what happens is that once these dudes go under the knife and they take estrogen and they do this whole medical transition, a lot of their original erotic stuff starts to minimize. Well, that's preliminary, but the motivation for this "I'm a woman now" is erotic, an erotic compulsion.
at Thanksgiving dinner with your family, if you even still have a family. It's kind of hard for me to imagine why someone would do that just to gratify a masturbatory urge.
No, it's not to gratify a masturbatory urge. It's an erotic, as he explains, it's an erotic target error, location error, which means that you conceptualize and create this woman in your psychology that you then erotically fall in love with.
That said, is there some sexual aspect of being transgender? Well, of course
Of course there is. We all know there is.
Damn is. How could an adult decide to switch genders without there being some connection to sexuality?
Oh, so Nick's argument is, well, it's always had to do with my erotic fetishism. So, duh. Well, that's not an argument either.
The problem is, autogynephilia is not a good description of that connection in most.
Here's the postmodernism. We're gonna have to make up new words, just like he did in the beginning of the video when he couldn't handle Blanchard's accurate description. We're gonna make up new words now because it hurts his feelings.
Cases, and it certainly isn't in my case. But I'm a 29-year-old transsexual with a history of dating women and cross-dressing in erotic situations, no less.
There you go. He just admitted it. So there you go, saying there's no erotic component to this, and then you said, yeah, but it's erotic.
According to Blanchard's theory, I'm therefore an autogynephile.
You are an autogynephile.
It seems that I have some explaining to do.
Please do.
Here's where the filth comes in. 6. Contrapoints, an erotic life. Come one, come all to the gender circus with your host Natalie. Step right up, you filthy freaks. One of the reasons it's difficult for trans women to refute Blanchard's theory is that even arguing against it from your own experience is incredibly humiliating and degrading and invalidating.
Why? How? How is it invalidating to explain, and you just admitted that you had an erotic, fetishistic component to this. So why is it humiliating? Again, it's Nick putting a value judgment and calling himself a pervert when Blanchard did nothing of the sort.
Fortunately, I have no sense of self-respect or dignity whatsoever, so I'm willing to take one for the team here. Get your clipboards out, gentlemen. I want to make this as easy as possible for the psychoanalysts at home. I was born in 1988. As a small child, I was not especially feminine nor especially masculine. I was not interested in sports and was just kind of physically inept. My main childhood interest was music, and I learned several instruments. In early adolescence, I was misdiagnosed with OCD, the primary symptoms being spending too much time in the shower and spending too much time styling my hair. My sexual development was kind of late. I never masturbated till I was 15, and I didn't fantasize about having sex with women or with men or even about becoming a woman. My fantasies were kind of platonic almost. I would sort of fantasize about women, but in a very abstract kind of way.
Yeah, you're creating this woman that Blanchard talks about, and then you try to become it. I mean, fits the theory perfectly.
An early romantic disappointment involved my realization that women would never be attracted to me in the same way that I was attracted to them. In my late teens and early 20s, I was a long-haired, smooth-chested androgyne, which suited me well. It was around then that I first cross-dressed, when a woman I was seeing asked if she could dress me up in her clothes and do my makeup. God, yes, I said. Throughout my 20s, I was on and off in relationships.
Well, did it give you an erotic fetishistic thrill? Are you going to explain that part of it?
Relationships where there was this feminization dynamic.
Yep, and one of the things that these autogynephiles do is they listen to these videos on YouTube, this feminization hypnosis. Check it out. I'll link one of them in the low bar. And it's typical autogynephilia, what he's describing.
More women are into feminizing boys than you might think. When I was feminized, it would just...
And you know why women do that? Do you know one of the reasons why women like to do that? To make you less threatening.
Make out and not do anything penetrative, but just sort of little proto-lesbian things, you know?
You're not a lesbian. That's another typical autogynephilic trait, is to call himself a lesbian. It's another big signal.
Some women I was with were not into that, and some would practically lock their underwear drawers when they found out I had done it in the past. There was one period...
Done what? Done what exactly? Why did they have to lock their underwear up? Were you masturbating in their underwear? That's another symptom of autogynephilia.
Where I cut my hair short and quit that altogether, but it didn't last more than a couple years. When I had regular heterosexual sex, it was like my soul had to leave my body in order for me to get the poison out, which is how I thought of it. The cross-dressing was never a solo or a masturbatory activity. There was always a partner, or sometimes several partners.
Yeah, to validate this whole womanhood thing. Again, it's the erotic target location error, where they're validating you as a female, and that turns you on because you've created this female persona that you're in love with, and you expect other people to validate it.
Bailey, are you paying attention to this? This is for you. What I liked about it was the way that dressing like a woman changed the way partners interacted with my body, how they would kind of treat me like a woman.
There you go. This whole idea in his head, and this comes from male socialization, that womanhood or femininity in particular terms is about submissiveness and subjugation. So when he was cross-dressing, he experienced, when he says, it made me feel like a woman because I was being treated like one, he imagines in his mind that he's the submissive, that he's the one being penetrated, that he's the one that's being subjugated, because this is what males are socialized into. They're socialized into masculinity, which comes with it a set of ideas about women, that women are the lesser, that women are the subjugated, that women are the penetrated, that women are the fucked. Women are the ones that get fucked, not the ones that do the fucking. So this is autogynephilia.
Fully acknowledge that a lot of the feminization was pretty fetishistic. There was a lot of short dresses and thigh highs, and occasionally also a BDSM submissive aspect.
There you go. Admitting it right here.
But over time I realized that the fetish aspect wasn't really what I liked about it. It wasn't humiliating for me to be feminized, it was affirming. And one day I kind of realized that I didn't want to be feminized at all. I wanted to be feminine.
Yes. Yes, because you're now becoming, like Blanchard states, there was a process of discovering this feminine persona that you've made up. And part of it is the erotic fetishization of wearing feminine clothing and wearing the skirts and the thigh-high boots. And then you start to physically manifest. And you come to the conclusion that, oh yeah, now I want to really become this image that I love. Yeah, so this is total autogynephilia right here.
In my mid-20s, I first started really paying attention to trans women and thinking about transitioning myself. But I thought that since I didn't feel like a woman, that I never would. And I thought that I would never pass and that I would just be a hideous parody of womanhood. Then about a year ago, thanks to this amazing online queer community that we have now, I started developing more positive thinking about this. I've always looked a little bit younger than my age, but last year I also started noticing the first signs that I was going to age into the body of an older man, and that triggered really intense gender dysphoria. At the same time, I realized that I would have to transition to have any hope of a genuinely fulfilling sex life.
You're always going to have the body of a man, because you are a man.
And at that point, the need to transition felt so urgent that I could not wait. So I got internet hormones from the Republic of Vanuatu, and I started taking those in August until I could get a prescription from an informed consent clinic. And since then, my life has drastically changed. I live as a woman full-time now.
What does that mean, you live as a woman full-time now? What does that mean? Explain this to me.
And most of the changes aren't sexual, but the hormones certainly do have sexual effects.
See, this whole I live as a woman now, what does that really mean? All it really means is that he engages in femininity. He's not a woman. He just thinks that by putting on makeup and putting on nail polish and changing his articles of clothing, that means that he's living as a woman. Women live as women because they're biologically female. They're oppressed in this society because they're biologically female. Not because they wear nail polish, not because they wear a dress, not because they wear thigh-high boots, not because they have long hair or wear makeup.
I now find myself attracted to both women and men, and the mere visual image of a woman no longer turns me on the way it did. Instead, I need there to be a certain kind of interpersonal connection.
Yeah, of course, because the erotic target location error is not outward, it's inward.
I don't masturbate at all, and I haven't come in months. Someone, please fuck me. I guess the critical thing is that I've been wearing women's clothes, my clothes, for 7 consecutive months, and I have been turned on by it for 0% of the time. So the idea that I'm some kind of transvestic fetishist is ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's not the only component to autogynephilia. You just explained that you have the ETLE, that you have that target location error. You just explained that. That's one of the main components of autogynephilia. You're not attracted to women out there. You're attracted to the woman that you are imagining in your mind that you now want to become.
And I'm not turned on by the mere idea of having a female body either. I mean, when there's developments, I'll check it out. But I'm not like, oh yeah, I have tits now, that's so hot. I mean, it's kind of hot. But it's more about other people being into it than it is about me being into it.
Yeah, it's all about this whole it's all about other women validating your persona that you're a woman, this thing, this invention in your psychology.
So as always,
and yeah, that's autogynephilia.
Sex drive is directed outward at other people.
And also, I'll explain why a lot of these male trannies go on to attack women is because women won't validate them. That's why those women in the UK were beaten on the street, because they wouldn't validate these 3 autogynephilic men.
Sexual aspect of my transsexuality is not about.
That's also why you hear a lot of these autogynephiles talk about the women around them, or women that sort of are in their orbit, and how envious and how much they hate the women that are around them in their lives, especially younger women, and especially more conventionally attractive women. Yeah, these men talk about how they hate them because they're everything that they're not. Like it's another way that it doesn't validate their delusion.
About the target of lust being directed inward. It's about me wanting my sexual encounters to occur from the standpoint of a female body.
Well, you just said you had no interest in female body.
At least as close as I can get.
Yeah, and again, you just said 1 minute ago, you said that it's not about having a female body. Now you say it's all about me having a female body and other people recognize that I have a female body. That's typical fucking autogynephilia. It's about your infatuation with the image that you've created in your mind of a woman that you now want to become, and you want every other person around you to validate it. And when we don't validate it, you're going to, of course, get very angry. Like, this whole video is about you getting angry that Blanchard, a respected research scientist, along with other research scientists who have confirmed his theory, you're angry at that understanding.
Since I started hormones, it's about my sexual desires coming from this psychologically female place of vague bisexual interest activated by interpersonal connection, rather than intense object-oriented male lust.
Right, it's not right. So other autogynephiles are into specific female body parts. Like, that's why that autogynephile in Bailey's book got up and made an erotic film where he has a prosthesis that's a female genitalia, and he puts that on, and he has this fucking dildo that he sits on, and he is consumed by this fetish of women's vulvas or women's vaginas. But Nick is saying that his fetish is the psychological living as a woman. It's behavioral autogynephilia. It's a lifestyle that he is his erotic target is the understanding that he has of living as a woman, not a woman's breasts, not a woman's vulva, but femininity itself.
So that's my attempt to describe my sexual history without resorting to politically correct cuckoldry or trans ideology.
Well, you still haven't refuted Blanchard's theory, so this hour-long video is a waste.
Now, I've read enough Blanchard to know that this description in no way lets me off the hook for autogynephilia.
That's right.
In fact, I'm what Blanchard would call a classic case of pseudo-bisexual behavioral autogynephilia.
That's right.
Pseudo-bisexual because, of course, all trans women's experiences are lies, and because according to...
Huh? What does that even mean? All of our experiences are lies.
Blanchard, I only like guys because being filled up with their dicks makes me feel like a girl, which is what I'm really into. And behavioral because Blanchard describes different kinds of autogynephilia, like anatomic, transvestic, behavioral, and physiological, according to what you supposedly fetishize.
That's
I'm
right.
turned on by sexually behaving like a woman, rather than simply wearing female clothes or having female anatomy.
And why is it so bad that you're a behavioral autogynephile? Why is this so bad? You've made it into this, oh, he called me a pervert, when he never did anything of the sort.
I mean, okay, you can slap a Greek word on anything and make it sound scary, fake, and pathological.
I'm sorry, but you're again making another value judgment.
But I think this is an especially unfair way to characterize my experience, and here's why. 7. Autophilia in general. I'm guessing that most people would be pretty reluctant to admit that they take any kind of sexual interest in their own bodies.
Yeah, here we go. Now, Nick's big argument here is that women do it too. So why is it so bad when I do it? The problem is that women don't do it, and there has been no such cases of women doing it. Charles Moser. Now, this is where we're going to get into Charles Moser. He's a BDSM advocate who wandered into this whole debate with one lousy fucking research paper, and I will link it because it's the stupidest thing I've ever read in my life. It consisted of an extremely small sample of women that he got to answer a questionnaire, and the questionnaire was basically adapted from the male questionnaire about autogynephilia. It had nothing to do with, and then he basically said, well, women have autogynephilia when they actually don't. I mean, his research study was one study, and it was the stupidest fucking thing ever. That will be linked in the low bar.
It's sort of like admitting that you enjoy your own body odor.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Ew. But how unusual is it to check yourself out, to take some sexual interest in the sight or touch of your own body?
The thing is that Moser misinterpreted his results. First of all, his methodology was fucking horrible because he basically took the male questionnaire with a small, tiny sample of women and asked them pretty much the same questions that he would ask a male autogynephile. And because women answered in the affirmative, he then said, oh, well, that just shows women have autogynephilia too. So it's not really such a bad thing, which is stupid because even if he could show that autogynephilia exists in women, it still doesn't discard Blanchard's theory, and we could still call you an autogynephile. But the plain fact of the matter is that none of his studies have been replicated. Moser's studies, none of them have been replicated. There's much more support for Blanchard's typology than there is for Moser's stupid little badly constructed study. And yeah, so there you go. That link will be in the low bar too.
I've noticed that cis men seem to really like their own penises and taking pictures of their penises.
Yeah, but the thing is that we're not even talking about autogynephilia anymore. The reason why biological males take photos of their dicks is not because they're gaining pleasure from it. They're sending it to someone else and imagining being with somebody else. So yeah, it's not autogynephilia because it doesn't involve an ETLE. It doesn't involve the erotic target being turned inward instead of outward. So there, you're wrong about that.
And sending them to other people.
Yes.
Does that make them autoandrophiles?
No.
Are they behavioral autophallophiles?
No. No, it doesn't, because the erotic target is outside of themselves and not inward like it is for you. That's the primary reason.
You can make up Greek words too, Blanchard.
Good for you. Just make up a whole bunch of concepts. You still haven't defeated his theory.
A cis woman who, having just bought some expensive lingerie, told me, it's not for men, it's for me. What does that mean?
Well, what does it mean? What does it really mean? What he's trying to say is that women have autogynephilia when they don't, because the erotic target is still outside of themselves.
It means she enjoyed wearing sexy lingerie under her clothes because it made her feel hot. Is that?
No, you didn't know. He's doing a Charles Moser here. Just because a woman said she bought expensive lingerie for herself doesn't mean that she's a fucking autogynephile.
That's cisvestic autogynephilia? Likewise.
No.
I used to date cis women.
And again, the problem with Moser's study is not only the methodology and the fact that it was an extremely small sample, unlike Blanchard, who conducted all of his research over decades and decades, and again with Bailey, and again Ann Lawrence is another theorist who is an admitted autogynephile who supports Blanchard's theory. Moser, in his methodology, as I said, when he was using the male questionnaire, the problem is that he didn't further then ask the women, were you thinking of how a man would react to you wearing this lingerie or doing this behavior. And that would have showed Moser to be an idiot, because the erotic target would still be the man that they're going to meet. That's the whole reason why they put on the lingerie to begin with. Not because they wanted to satisfy themselves with a fantasy that they created in their own mind about this persona that they've created. No, it's because they were actually, their erotic target was outside of themselves. So yeah, sorry, Nick, this is not an argument.
I know what they do, and I can tell you that women touching their own breasts during sex or while masturbating is not at all uncommon.
Yeah, because they're with somebody else. Their erotic target is still outside of themselves.
Is that anatomical autogynephilia?
No, it's not.
Twitter user Nathan of Oz pointed out that in the October 2017 issue of Cosmo, an article on self-love tips recommends that its apparently cis female readers try stroking their own feet or running a feather over their skin as a prelude to kneeling in front of a full-length mirror and rubbing one out.
Yeah, but women don't get turned on. It's a completely different thing. Women do not get, again, the erotic target is the biggest clue here. Women are not inventing a persona in their mind that they're then trying to become. They're simply satisfying a masturbatory urge. That is not the same thing as autogynephilia.
Possibly while squatting on a dildo. Can you imagine the level of paraphilic male fetishism that would be read into this if it was written by a trans woman?
No, because there's a completely different definition. You're not explaining the difference between autogynephilia and some woman who finds pleasure in masturbating. They're two totally different things. Oh, fuck's sakes. Women are not inventing a persona in their head that they're then trying to become, idiot. They're simply masturbating.
I mean, it's one step away from filming yourself fucking a sex robot. And okay, Cosmo's sex advice is often ludicrous, but the point is, it seems like it's only when it comes to trans women that we feel the need to whip out the suffix philia.
Yeah, that's a stupid argument. Stupid. Again, Blanchard's typology research will be in the low bar.
Seems what's going on here is a lot of pathologizing of normal female sexuality when...
Oh, yeah. No. So Nick's saying, but I'm a woman, so therefore everything I'm doing is okay. No, you're a man. Okay? You're a man that has invented this female persona that you are now in love with and you now want to become. Okay? Women are not experiencing that.
It exists in trans women. But of course that raises the question, what is normal female sexuality?
Yeah, okay, what is normal female sexuality? What is it? Okay? The point is that they don't have the erotic target location error. And that's one of the main features of autogynephilia. Women don't have that. They've not found a single woman who has this problem. It's only men. And the reason why is because men are socialized into masculinity. And it gives them a specific version, a specific conception of what womanhood is all about. So your conception of womanhood, Nick, is based on the fact that for 30 years, right, you were socialized into masculinity. So your conception of womanhood is submission and thigh-high boots and hypersexualized, pornified image where submission and subjugation is all part of this male fantasy. That's the difference, okay? Women don't have this. They don't. It's all men. Men are the only ones that have this autogynephilic propensity. There's no such component in women because women are raised in a completely different with completely different cultural messages. Fuckhead.
E. Normal female sexuality. Switching from...
You know what? I'm going to stop here and I'll continue because these videos are so long. I mean, I'm 30 minutes into his video and he still hasn't debunked Blanchard's typology. So this is going to have to be a part 3. Sorry, sisters, but it's just, I can't upload videos over an hour. That's just ridiculous. So stay tuned for part 3.